All right, so this week we are looking at chapter 12, Animals and the Environment. And specifically, we are looking at human interaction with these things. Um, this topic can be very controversial, and in the past 15, 20 years, this topic, especially humans' interactions with the environment, has taken on a political component as well, where, at least within America, humans are largely divided uh, on their views about the environment and humans' responsibility for the environment based off of political lines. And so for that reason, I just want to be very clear at the start that that is not the purpose of this week. But it's instead to help us better understand how we feel about these issues, again, from an ethical perspective. And perhaps the best way of doing this is by thinking about this from terms that are new or different or unfamiliar. So at the beginning of the textbook, we can find the statement, "My economic well-being now is more important than the environment we leave to future generations." So what is more important? Your quality of living today, the type of job that you have, whether you're middle class, whether or not you're able to drive two cars, the type of work that you do, is that more important to you than the environment we leave to future generations? So what do you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree with this statement? Personally, um, I I am going to side on the agree standpoint, and I'll explain why. Or I guess I'll explain how I struggle with this. So absolutely, as a father of three, I definitely have seen my worldview change over the last 10 years. Whereas I used to be primarily concerned about myself, how I looked, the clothes that I was wearing, right, my status within society. All of that took a serious backseat as soon as my wife and I welcomed in our first child. Suddenly, it just provided perspective. And as I looked at my life, the things that I was doing in my life, the more I realized that really all I cared about was the happiness, the well-being of my children. And I imagine if I was a grandfather, I would feel the same way about my grandchildren, right? So as you see life through the eyes of young people, you want to ensure the best for them. And so, yeah, absolutely. And in fact, I largely do this now. I put my economic well-being on the back burner to ensure the happiness of my children. But when it comes to the environment, right, suddenly this gets be a little bit more complicated. Some people call into doubt whether or not the actions that humans make have any real lasting impact on the environment. Are you willing to act on your decisions here? So if my economic well-being now is not as important as the environment I leave my children, then how do my actions represent that belief, or do they not? Do I say that my economic well-being is not as important, but do my actions suggest that my economic well-being is more important? So I can look at things like my energy usage, the types of energy that I have. I will say proudly that in 2009, when I bought my very first car, I bought a Honda Fit. At the time, gas prices were like $3.75 a gallon, and I was trying to maximize my miles per gallon, and the Honda Fit was one of the best options available. I drove that car until last year, and I averaged 40 to 45 miles per gallon, even though it wasn't socially the coolest car. And when I told my students I drove a Honda Fit, many of them scoffed at me and said, "Oh, professor, you need to be driving a big Dodge truck or a Chevy truck." And I thought, no, I would much rather make this decision than really care about what society says about me. Anyways, that's my own personal views on the matter. Be curious to see how you feel about this.